when stupid people are in charge and they are telling people what to do and there's nothing I can do about it. That is my little hell. And imagine me experiencing that for 3 years.
Welcome to Are You Real? Finding the Authentic You, the podcast that focuses on Christians that are active in everyday life. Join in as we speak to everyone from successful business owners to educators to athletes about their faith and how it helps them reach out and revolutionize those around them to do the same. And now get ready to roar with your host, the voice of manifestation, John Fuller.
Hey Roar Nation, John Fuller here, and before we get started today, I want to share with you one major thing that has made a difference in my life, and that's working out and nutrition. So besides staying mentally fit, it's important to take care of your body, right? And that means having more energy and more focus throughout the day. I don't know about you, but sometimes I have really long days, and I need every advantage that I can get to keep up with my 3 kids. So my wife, Casey, has created an amazing online program that walks you through step-by-step how to work out and what to eat. The best part about it is she's taken out all the guesswork and what to do and how to do it. She shows you everything. She shoots videos, answers questions, walks you through the whole process. And honestly, the best part about it, besides the last thing that I said, is it's less than $20 a month. I don't know of anywhere you can get such an amazing program for less than $20 a month. So if you will go to our website on areyoureal.org, you'll see a banner on the right side of my beautiful wife. And if you will click on the banner, it'll take you right where you need to go to get started. And the way we've done that is we've created it all through Facebook. So all you have to do is click on there and it will walk you through and put you into a small private Facebook community. And also all the time I get questions about supplements, what to take, how to take them, do they really work? And we've taken care of that also. If you will send me a message through our website or through Facebook on Are You Real, I will gladly send you some samples of my favorite products that I take every day that help me stay focused and full of energy. So again, Facebook me, private message, send me an email. I will send you samples for free to help you get started. Jump on there, click on the link, send me a message, and we just want to get you mentally strong, physically fit, and for you to be the best you can be. Have a blessed day. Hey Roar Nation, John Fuller here, and I am so excited for today's special guest. So I want to let you know, yesterday we had a Master of Minds group, and I got the honor of sitting down in a room for, I'd swear it had to have been about 10 hours, with the guys over at Entrepurpose. It was Rusty and Brian, and also in the group was a good friend of mine, Jody Holland, who does Jody Holland Training and Speaking. I had the privilege of sitting in a room with 3 fantastic minds as we hacked out each other's businesses, purpose, what we needed to do. And honestly, it was just a very long, awesome day and just had the privilege of doing that. But today is even more exciting because I want to bring to you Rusty. And what we're going to do is we are going to dive into his awesomeness, his mind, what they're doing over at Entrepurpose, and how they are bringing clarity to people. So, Rusty, I got you on the phone, my friend. Are you ready?
I am absolutely ready.
Okay. So what Rusty and Brian do is they bring clarity to people, they help them discover their purpose, and they give them vision to live out the purpose that they are discover. I highly recommend. This is everything that what our podcast is about. I cannot say better things about these 2 guys and what they're doing. So, Rusty, I've given our listeners a very brief description of what you do. Will you dive into your... Oh, man, I forgot to mention, brother, you are a best-selling Amazon author.
Oh, thanks, man.
Dude, congratulations. And we got to be part of promoting that book as well. But Rusty, let's dive into what you guys do.
Yeah, absolutely, John. First off, thanks for having me here. Man, it's been awesome listening to your podcast and hearing some great people that you've been interviewing, and to be on that list alongside them is a great honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Brian and I basically describe ourselves as psychological Sherpas, and that seems kind of weird and funny. It's a catchy thing, but it's absolutely true. Basically, what we do is we help people figure out why they're stuck, navigate the mountains and the trails so that they can get up to that peak experience, which essentially is their purpose. What is their God-given purpose in life? And when you know what that is, it gives you such clarity. It allows you to cast vision and gives you so much energy that you can move forward with confidence in whatever action you take.
Okay. What has been your journey, though, of this? Because obviously you just didn't one day wake up and like, man, I'm going to just give people purpose and help them discover their purpose. So give me some of your journey of how you came about this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because so many entrepreneurs end up solving their own problems for like 5-10 years prior, right? For me, it was this desperate search to find out why I was here on this planet. My story is a prodigal story. So I grew up in the church, kind of left the church for a while, came back, was on fire for the Lord, I was going to pastor. I did a bunch of different things. And just like most stories, and for us guys, it starts with a girl, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a good one.
Yeah, she's a great gal. I wish her the best. But back then we broke up, and that kind of rocked me. I had dated her for 3 years, and God had decided that we weren't to be married. But it had emotionally just, we'd even argue, like destroyed me at that time. And that caused me to question a lot of how I thought my life should be. And I wanted to go back to the source, which was essentially God. Like, why did you allow this to happen? For what reason? And what other things do you want me to do? I want to hop onto your plan, not do my plans, but your plans, because of the fact that I obviously screwed this up. So I need to get a little wisdom from you. So that started a journey and a thought process of trying to understand, because we know in Scripture that God does everything by intention. There is no oops in the kingdom. There's nothing that passes his desk that he doesn't have awareness and eyesight on. So I knew that that experience, which was a real struggle for me, sent me into depression, was planned. It was part of the experience. And so I wanted to really get on board with, well, what is your plan for me, Lord? What is your design for my life? And it took me 13 years to figure this out. And I'll be honest, it wasn't pretty. There were good and bad times. The worst of it was literally I became an alcoholic, suffered through a couple depressions, heavy smoker, gained a lot of weight, became fat. And that was only about a little over a year ago. And basically, it was all of this drive of my desire to want to know why I was here, and God's unwillingness at that time to share it with me. And I'll be honest, some of those prayers I had were very angry. I was very pissed off. And I know that some Christians out there, they kind of cringe if I were to say exactly what happened. It was like I yelled at God in my prayers. But I feel like those are the most honest prayers.
Yes.
And you aren't hiding anything from him. He already can see your heart. He can already know your thoughts. So what are you really doing by not being honest? You're trying to hide from a God who can't be hidden from. So I full on engaged, and I would let him have it. And it's really kind of funny because I imagine him up in heaven looking down on little old me and seeing me yelling in my prayers and raging and just like, hey, Gabriel, come over here real quick. And, hey, that's my son down there. You see him? And inside I'm like yelling like, ah! But up from heaven I can just see him going, ah! You know, this little tiny guy, hey, that's my son. He thinks this is the biggest thing in the world that he's facing right now. But this is just small in comparison to what I have planned and what he's capable of handling, because I'm going to give him the strength to do all these things and more. And so sometimes we see what's right in front of us, and we may know intellectually that we'll get through it. If anybody out there who is struggling and raging right now, I just want you to know that it's okay. It's absolutely okay. And God hasn't forgotten you like he hasn't forgotten me. Because on September of 2015 was when God dumped my purpose into my life. He revealed it to me. He blew my life up. And that purpose...
Hold on. So before we jump in, we'll go a little bit ahead. Before you get into September 15th, so finding purpose, let's back up a little bit. So hit me with a low for you. I mean, obviously you got 13 years ups and downs. You talk about getting depressed, smoking, but take me just to a moment where it really hit you hard, like it was the low of lows.
Sure. So at the peak of it, or I guess the lowest dip.
Bottom of the barrel, baby.
Bottom of the barrel. The worst of it was, if I could just tell a story, like in the beginning of the book that we just wrote, I lay out what was a typical night for me at about 2 a.m. And it seems like it's a one-off, but that was kind of a nightly experience where I would drink on average 6 to 12 beers a night just to feel the buzz. I drank to drown my pain. And literally what it was that for about 3 years, I was working in an environment that was really rough and with some good people, but the situation was just very stressful. I felt like it was my own hell. And so I'm really big into personality theory and specifically Carl Jung's work with cognitive types. And so for my particular personality and for Brian, my partner, our little hell is when, and I'm just going to be laid out there, some of y'all are going to love this and hate it, when stupid people are in charge and they are telling people what to do and there's nothing I can do about it.
Yes.
That is my little hell. And imagine me experiencing that for 3 years. And so I did everything I could, but it just felt like I was stuck. It felt like no matter what positive gains I produced, I felt like people were drowning all around me, including myself. And I was not close to my wife. There was just this chasm of distance. And I'm sure a lot of you men can realize or empathize of the 6-inch chasm, in the bed. It's amazing how close physically you can be to somebody, but just how emotionally and mentally distant, far apart that can be at the same time. And so I was experiencing that. We had a daughter that almost died 24 hours after her birth. And she had a infant stroke in utero, which caused that. And, so it was our first child. And so all the stress of having to deal with that, she's beautiful and healthy now, but having to really reconcile. I still remember the feeling of what it was like to potentially walk over and tell my wife that our firstborn child was dead. Wow. And having, when they called code blue and everything, and my wife was unaware because we were in a different part of the hospital. To this day, if I walk into a hospital and I hear the beeps of the machines as they go off, as they monitor patients, that strikes something in me, and it's hard for me not to cry in the hospital because it takes me right back to those moments when I could see my daughter like in the NICU and just wired up like some sort of macabre cyborg, as it were. And it's really interesting. So all of that emotional stuff that I never really reconciled was feeding into my lack of inability to be effective at work and to control my environment. And I felt like I was in hell and I couldn't get out. So I drank and I drank and I drank, and it got really bad. The worst of it was I'd have to drink half a handle to get drunk.
What's a half a handle?
So imagine like going to buy I can't remember the exact ounces and what they translate to, but a large bottle of vodka.
Okay.
I'd have to drink half of that.
Wow.
In one sitting.
Okay.
And so I hope that gives you a kind of a perspective, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. So at this point, you're drowning in your sorrows. You have a lot of emotional baggage that you're needing to deal with. Where in this process do you kind of have that moment where God just kind of shakes you and you have that kind of come to moment where you realize this has got to stop and I have purpose?
Yeah, so this continued on when I left Virginia and came to Maryland. And it was funny because I thought the stress at my previous job it being gone, would have opened up the door for me to relax, and the drinking would have taken care of itself. But it didn't. The nature of like my unhappiness. And by the way, I'm one of those candy-coated on the surface high performers. So most people didn't know that this was going on. Most people saw by their standards, I was doing well, but I was hiding it all. And because of the liability that came with being real to your coworkers and to your friends and your family, most of us feel the shame of like, I just don't want them to look at me differently. And I felt that, sure, to a certain point, but what it really was is my cynical nature of like, you don't really want to know how I'm doing. You don't really want to spend the time when you ask, hey, Rusty, what's going on? How you doing? That I'm going to open up to you and tell you about the fact that I just got 24 beers in, and that was the only way that I could go to sleep. Nobody wants to talk about like the real stuff. That's why I appreciate this podcast so much. And so nobody saw it for me. And there were times it was there, like it'd leak out, but nobody really asked me how I was really doing.
Let me ask you this, Rusty. Do you think that was part of the lie, though, in your own mind? Like, do you think if you really had somebody that sat down and was sincere, you think you were at a place to actually let it all out and deal with it? Or do you think part of that was just a lie in your mind? Or do you think it really was cynical? Maybe you didn't have anybody around you that really cared to hear the truth.
I think it's both. And I don't want to paint it like nobody cares. Right. I think they're just afraid I had a couple people, like my partner Brian, because I would call him. Like usually what would happen is I'd get drunk or drink too much, and then I get nostalgic. And all my buddies were in California, including Brian, and I would call people to reconnect and just catch up. And I'd kind of vent some of my stress, and they probably knew that I was drinking more than I should have. And there were a couple times, like I remember Brian saying, like when I would cross a line and get really, I guess, drunk, hangry, or like, I don't know how to describe that word. It just like get belligerent, and he would call me out on it. We never really did talk about the deep things of why that was happening, though. And I think most people are afraid that they're going to push their friends away when they're like that, when in reality, that's exactly what we want. We want to be engaged. Because I believe that every person, including myself at that time, wanted to be seen. And seen and not just rejected as trash or diminished as a person, but we all want to be validated like your pain is real, and that's okay. Now, what's not okay is to stay there, but what is okay is you're there for a reason, and I'm going to love you anyways, and I see you. And so that experience really fed into, and you asked me about when did it change?
Yes.
September 15th last year, I was driving to Wawa. I was consuming a bunch of podcasts and material, just a lot of content, and just learning and soaking it in because I was like, I got to figure out my purpose. And this is normal. Got to learn, got to figure out a way. There's got to be some secret. And I've been doing that for a lot of years. But anyhow, at this point, one day, I cannot tell you what the speaker was saying or what podcast it was, but there was some statement, some truth that sparked a thought, the initial little fire in my head, and that spread like a wildfire across my brain as one thought fed into another, that fed into another, that fed into another. And I was coming back from Wawa going to work in my lunch break, and it just, this cascade of just energy and thought and just unloaded on me. I felt like God had dropped some truth, like he had lit something on fire and just ignited. And so one thing led to another, and I'm driving and I turn off the podcast and I'm just thinking, and just it's rolling through one thought to another. And then I get to a stoplight, and I got to write this down. So I pull up my Evernote app in my phone, and I just start writing out what I think my purpose is. And I'm at the stoplight, and I'm not doing the safe thing. I'm driving now, like completely focused on my purpose, trying not to get in an accident while I'm excited and big old smile on my face. And I pull into the parking lot, and I have a purpose statement for the first time, and I'm sitting there staring at it, dumbfounded. And for some of your listeners out there, I don't know if that resonates with them, but for the first time in my entire life, outside of understanding that God loves me and has created me for a reason, but for the first time, I knew why and what I was supposed to do with my life. And so my purpose, do you want me to share it at this point?
Yeah, I would love to hear it because, and I think the listeners, you got us on a high note. I want to hear that, and also some of how you came up with the process of getting it.
Yeah. So a lot of you may not resonate with this statement, and it's not meant to, and I don't care. But for every person that I've walked through this process and we found theirs, it resonates with them. And that's what matters. So for me, my purpose on this planet, why God made me, is I elevate perspective and empower purpose so that others can live an authentic identity. And what that means is everything for me. Every job, every decision I've made, the way that I operate and what makes me unique is contained within that singular statement. I've had 26 jobs before. I joined the Navy at 28, started working at 14. Had 7 businesses along the way. I've tried a million different things. I've accumulated a lot of knowledge. I'm a jack of all trades, naturally, master of none. And so I used to think that was awesome when I was younger, like learning all these different things. But at some point, you have to specialize. At some point, you have to focus. And I couldn't because I loved too many things. I wanted to do too many things. And that was a distraction. I was jealous of people who could only do one thing because it was so easy to figure out what you should do. And for me, I could do a lot of things. And that's not an arrogant statement in the sense of, look how awesome Rusty is because he knows a lot of stuff. It's really my desperation that's coming out in my search.
Yeah.
And so I was not satisfied with one thing, and I had to go find another. And it was like an addiction, really, in that journey. But that statement, elevating perspective, for example, What I found is I always challenge people. If you tell me something's locking you up, or I see a problem, or you come to me with a solution, usually what I do is I challenge you to get outside of your current situation and mentally vault yourself into a bigger picture. And usually on its own, that bigger picture will present the solution for you because you're thinking long term. And I do that all the time. I always counter people's perspectives by giving them another one. Not saying you're a jerk, you're dumb, you're stupid, you should think about this, but it's like more like, I hear this all the time. After I tell them something, I'll hear, I never thought about that.
Yes.
And then there's a pause as they're ruminating over it. And what I just did was give them a different perspective to think about, and they will solve their own problems. The empower purpose portion of my statement, I don't do anything unless there's a reason. I literally do not. And if you can't give me a reason, I won't do it. I just won't, because it seems stupid to me. It seems like, why would you do a thing unless you know why you're doing that thing? And I'm just wired that way. So when people want to accomplish something or they ask me a question, I'm always asking why. Why do you want to do it? Why do you want to do this sort of thing? And then the authentic identity is, I see so many people locked up in the lies that they tell themselves and the false coats and identities that they wear because they feel like it's going to please someone else or that's what's expected of me. And when I connect with people, I really want them to be themselves. I want them to know, like at their core, that they are loved and accepted. You may have behaviors that are wrong, but you as a person, Jesus Christ loves you. And I want to model that by being able to wade through that muck with you. What's funny is people will often share things with me faster, and I hear this too. I've never told anybody this. Mm-hmm. Or, man, I haven't told my friends for, that I've known for 5-10 years stuff about this stuff. Deep, troubling things that they've thought about, they've really wanted to share. And I think what it really boils down to is that's how God's wired me, to get to know you quickly, to navigate your little maze of masks. Because I think what he's designed me to do is help people understand that, one, Jesus loves them at their core, and that there's a real human being in front of them that echoes that. It's possible to be seen and not rejected. And then also those people who can really appreciate who we are at our core and hang out there. It's also nice to know that you can still change and grow.
Okay, so I want to ask you this. So you're in the parking lot, you find your purpose statement. How was that an anchor for you? So at this point, you're drinking, smoking, eating unhealthy. So you have a lot of bad behavior. Was your mission statement, did that become an anchor for you now that you oh my gosh, I have purpose? Were you able to change some of your other choices that you were making that were detrimental to your life?
Oh, absolutely. Okay, so now you're starting to get me fired up. So here's where it really comes, this is probably what your listeners actually care about instead of little old me, right? Here's the beauty of it. When you do have your purpose statement, it does dramatically change your life. And it's not like a come to Jesus moment in the sense, I'm not talking on the level of salvation. I'm not talking about fundamentally eternity, but I am talking about a very similar experience. Because when you get saved and you find out who you really are in Christ, everything naturally shifts to line up with that. And so when you find your purpose and you know that and you're convinced it resonates with you, we're talking about an identity component. And so your life will naturally adjust. Here's my example. I didn't stop drinking. I didn't stop smoking. I didn't stop eating horribly. And all these bad habits and poor behavior didn't immediately change. What happened was, by the way, I went into another depression immediately following. I don't know if I mentioned that. And the reason is this, I knew who I was, but I had no ability or method or way to apply it, incorporate it into my life. And you too, all your listeners, when I talk to people who come through this discovery process, it's you need to sit in your purpose for a while, and we will actually walk out how you can apply this in your life. But I warned them. I said, what's going to happen is you're going to instantly want to act, and I'm going to tell you no, and this is going to be kind of rough, but you need to sit in it for 30 days and let this really absorb into you, and then we'll act. Because the natural desire of once you know who you are, you want to do something about it. When I walk people through it for themselves, I'm there to catch them and walk them through. At that time of my life, nobody was there to catch me. Nobody walked me through this process And I did it on my own. So there was nobody else on the other side to say, hey, guess what? Depression's coming. It's okay. Because I couldn't apply it. And so I went to a conference called Thrive, which is amazing. And if your listeners want to know anything about that, I highly recommend that they go. It's the best conference I've ever attended. John, I'd love to see you there. You belong there. And so I went there and I got an actual method to write the book, which we just published. And I got all the action I needed and the focus that I needed there.
I want to, Rusty, real quick, for the sake of time, I definitely want to dive into, and I'm glad you brought up your book. Okay. So as we read your book, in the book that you just wrote, am I going to get out of it trying to find my purpose? Like, summarize your book and why. Sell me on it, man. We're both sales guys. I want to know why I need your book.
Sure. Do you mind if I return real quick? Just to explain
absolutely.
So after I got the action, I stopped drinking on my own 2 months later. I stopped smoking on my own 6 months later. I started eating healthy again a few months later. Like, all of this stuff started naturally happening, not because of any guilt, like I needed to do this thing, but I wanted to because they were getting in the way of my purpose. So for your listeners, ultimately, understanding who you are, these bad habits, you can't change your life by fixing habits or behavior. You can fix your life by fixing your identity and your mentality. Because how you believe is how you will behave.
That's good.
And so I just want to drive that home because that's where the real value is. But to answer your question about the book, what are they going to get? It's everything I've learned, all the tools that it took for me to figure this out naturally. And so we talk about basically this. This is the fundamental idea. The EntrePurpose funnel is a 4-component diagram. And here's what it boils down to. At the intersection of skills, opportunity, and passion, where all those 3 line up in your life, you will have success. And you'll make a lot of money. That's just the reality of it. But making a lot of money is not enough. You will tap out. And what I mean by that is the money will cease to be something important to you, and you'll get bored and you'll self-sabotage. Here's what you need to do is you need to have the 4th component, which is a people group. So when you are successful, you can take that surplus and you can funnel it through a people group that you care about. The way that you find your significance and you convert your success into significance is through a people group that's based in your own pain. So EntrePurpose exists because I'm reaching out to people who have suffered like I suffered, who feel lost, who feel stuck, who want to live for something more but don't know how. So if you're in that place, this book is just for you. I mean, it is literally a layout of all the lessons I've learned and points to resources and tools that you can go explore and go deeper with. But at the end of the day, in fact, within 2 days of that book being written, a friend of mine from high school messaged me, and she went through it, gobbled it all up because she was right there, and drafted her own purpose statement on her own. And I was just blown away. And I was like sitting there calling Brian, like, Brian, it worked. I'm sorry, it actually works. And not that I didn't think it would, but just it's something about like actually seeing it happen live was just amazing.
Yes.
And so that's what it's there for. It's a gift. It's my gift to you, 13 years of search in one easy to read book.
And tell me the name of your book again so our listeners can find it on Amazon.
Yeah, go on Amazon. It's EntrePurpose. And if you just search EntrePurpose, we're like the only thing that has that title, and you can get the Kindle or the printed book. It's up to you. And for your listeners, if they do order it, we love your feedback. Tell us how it has impacted you, what you need, what tools or other things, resources. We love to help people move further down that journey and that path. So reach out to us. You can go visit us at entrepurpose.com and send us an email that way.
Okay. What is another resource that would help our listeners? I highly recommend your book. 100% believe in what you guys are doing. What's another resource that you would recommend for our listeners to check out if they're really trying to discover who they are and purpose?
Yeah, I'd say I've read Michael Hyatt's book, Living Forward.
Okay.
And that book is a very actionable, tactical way to organize your life as far as when you think of life accounts, is how they put it. Essentially, you're spending enough time and having margin in every area so that you're not overtaxing one or the other. So that's definitely a good resource if you want to have a systematic approach to each of your relationships.
Nice. Okay, I like that. All right, Rusty, I ask all of my listeners this question. If you could go back to the younger you, what would you tell yourself and what age would you go to?
Well, first off, I'd probably slap myself because it'd be like, you're going to do stupid stuff. So this is for all the years of stupid.
This is all your years of stupid. Bam!
But what I would say is, it's okay. You're going to be okay. The most important thing for you, Rusty, and it'd probably go back to probably right before I broke up with that gal, your life is going to be rocked, and you're going to begin a journey that's going to eventually, you're going to go down this dark tunnel, and you're going to come out on the other side. But you will come out the other side a better human being. Just keep the faith, do what you feel is right, and don't forsake and miss loving people.
I love it.
I'd say that for me, like in my cynical nature over the years, it was kind of tough sometimes. I would really kind of look at people like resources, like not human, and really diminish their value because I was diminishing my own value. And so if I had to change one thing over the years, it would be really loving people more and living in that moment and being present when they're hurting instead of just walking on by.
I really like that. As you said that, Rusty, one word that I heard for you real specifically, I just felt like God was saying that you're a refiner. And the word that I heard was that you bring out the purity in people and that you show people's true value. So, man, that's awesome. All right, Rusty, where do we find you? Tell our listeners if they want to jump on, which I highly recommend, jump on everything that you guys are doing, your book, your coaching, your website. How do we find you and Brian?
So we're on Facebook most of the time. That's where we spend our large majority of our social media. So facebook.com/EntrePurpose. Or you can go to EntrePurpose.com, which is our website. And we're babies in the internet business world. I love it. So we're still refining everything, still getting up and running. The most important thing is if you need help with identifying who you are, you can go through one of those two channels. And we're not so big right now that we don't take personal emails. So you can reach out directly to me at rusty@EntrePurpose.com or Brian@EntrePurpose.com. We'd love to hear from you. It's about people. That's really what it boils down to. And when you need help, we'd be happy to either help you directly or point you to someone who can. Because the most important thing is not us making a buck as much as it is getting you to that next step, whatever that looks like.
Man, I thank you for that. What is one piece of parting advice before we let you go? What is one piece of advice you'd like to give us?
It's the same advice I give to my daughter, I think. It's that when she falls down and she cries, I'll walk over to her and I'll pick her up and I'll remind her, I say, what do we do when we fall? We get back up, is what she'll repeat back to me. So I'm going to tell your listeners here, no matter what you face, no matter what you've dealt with, no matter what your past is, I don't care. Don't give up. God hasn't given up on you. Don't give up on him. He'll see you through. Romans 8:28 says all things work out for the good of those who are called according to his purposes. He's got a plan for your life, and it's possible to know it, so don't give up on it.
Man, amen to that, my friends. So listeners, check out our front page and resources. We will have Rusty and Brian's book on EntrePurpose on there. Just please rate and review us. Share this podcast. I know that you know somebody, if it's not you, who needs to find purpose and who needs to find a solid foundation in what they're doing. So please get on there, share it, review it. Guys, we love you. We thank you for tuning in. And remember, at the end of the day, be real, be authentic, and be you.
That's all for this episode of Are You Real? Finding the Authentic You. Be sure to go to areyoureal.org for your free questionnaire to identify your gifts and talents and how you can use them to help people become leaders and catapult them into their destiny to help others become the leaders of tomorrow. We appreciate you spending your time with us and look forward to helping you reach out and revolutionize next time on Are You Real? Finding the Authentic You.